So I'm Paul Vincent Cable, and I'm the Chief Executive and co-founder of EnSo Impact.
And Paul, what does it do?
Well, we're developing a chain of schools across Africa eventually. Right now we're in Kenya, and our focus is really the bottom of the pyramid. So this is our notion is to bring world-class education to people earning certainly less than $5 a day and really less than $3 or $4 a day.
And so, what are the ways in which it's different from a conventional school?
Many ways. So one of them is really leveraging technology. You know, what's happened over the past 10 years is that you've now got fantastic, educational technology, which really allows you to bring world-class teaching to poor people. If you step back even 10, 15 years, basically you just had your teacher in the classroom, and the children were very, very dependent on the teacher. And so often in Africa you get low quality teaching, you get the teacher not even being in the classroom. Now you can get a single great teacher, and that might be a real person, Sal Khan for example, or a computer, literally sort of AI type teacher teaching these children, and that's extraordinary. And
you've got tablets in the classroom basically.
Yes, so there are two things. So one is tablets themselves. So we've got an education partner, which is Wiz Education, which has terrific maths tuition type ed tech. And so really their approach is that each child has their own tutor, but of course through the technology itself. Another thing we have in the classrooms is projectors, and we've got broadband internet. So we're leveraging Skype in the classroom and some other internet-based technologies like that.
And it's not just about the learning, is it? It's a broader view of how capable the child is of receiving that education. Describe that to me.
Yeah, very much. So one of my big frustrations was that the education system, and this is not just in Africa actually, it's the same here, focuses so much on academic qualities and attainment, which isn't to say that's not important. It is important that the children are literate and numerate. We know that. But I've been asking the question for many years, is that enough? What's missing, from a standard education? So as the child grows up, very often they'll go through difficult situations in their lives. Somebody close to them will die, for example, or they'll try and get a job for not just weeks or months, but actually years, and nothing will happen. You've got many countries, you've got many young adults and nowhere near enough jobs. So how do they bounce back from all of that suffering? So that was one question. How do they develop that kind of resilience? How do they develop the empathy to have relationships that actually work? So one of the problems, again across Africa, often in families is painful dysfunctional relationships, and that hugely impacts the children's lives as they grow older. So I've been looking for solutions to that, and so bringing social and emotional intelligence into the classroom has been key in the kind of things that we've been doing.
And you're also dealing with health, aren't you? Because a lot of the children arrive at school
absolutely
sick, basically.
Absolutely. And so, yeah, exactly. So what I realised was it doesn't matter, even if you get fantastic education in the classroom, if the child is sick and they can't even go to school, or they're getting to school but they're struggling because they're weak and coughing and spluttering, that hugely impacts their ability to learn. So really, if you're going to solve the problem of education, you also have to solve the problem of health. And so where we're innovating there is to leverage the school as a hub to retail solutions to common healthcare problems, and one of which is kerosene or kerosene poisoning. So we've got a solar solution to that, which is with Bbox, a British company. Hand washing is a big issue, or lack of hand washing, so we've got a partnership with Unilever to retail soaps and that kind of thing. And the other thing is water. So, retailing purified water from the school again.
And you've got two pilots at the moment. Describe what's happened there and what the results have been so far.
Sure. Well, they're both in Kenya, and one of them has been going a little while, a few months now. So that's in a sort of peri-urban area of Nairobi called Kitengela. It's on the Namanga Road down to Tanzania. And so it's a slum school, and it's actually owned by an NGO, so this is a joint venture with them. So the children are using tablets, they're doing maths whiz, and it's amazing, both the joy on the children's face when they use these things. It's just incredible.
And they're learning faster.
a lot faster, and as far as we can tell, probably 4 times faster than they are typically. And it's not just the learning; it's the sheer impact of actually having this technology and the joy and the excitement of it, which is impacting their entire lives. So that's been huge. Another thing we've just brought in is Skype in the classroom, and bringing in the social and emotional piece. So that we've just started that, and we partnered that with this other school in Kibera, which again we've just started. So we've just trained the teachers there in the sort of the core emotional learning piece, and now we're going to do the classes as well.
How much does it cost a parent to send a child to the 2 schools we've been talking about so far?
Sure. Well, they're both really sort of entry level type schools from a cost point of view. So they're
primary schools, aren't they?
They're primary schools. Well, one of them is actually a pre-primary school, and the other one's pre-primary and primary. So the parents are paying $5 to $6 a month, which is what they would be paying if they sent their child to a government school. The high-end school that we're doing, on the other hand, is literally 10 times that. So yeah, completely different kettle of fish.
And you're shortly going to be raising funds to create a kind of flagship institution.
Yes. So one of the problems that's in education at the low end, low cost, is this problem of a reputation for poor quality, and sometimes that's deserved, sometimes it's not. But the problem is that it's just, perception is everything, right? So the way that we're getting around that is to build a higher cost school, and to really kind of like an all bells and whistles school.
If I was a showcase.
Yeah. If I was sending my child to a school, what would I want that school to be like? So you're unrestrained by all of the trying to cut costs everywhere, and then leveraging the reputation and the brand equity from that to then do the low cost schools. So we're raising $10 million at the moment to do that.
And what sort of investors are you looking for?
Well, there are 2 pieces to that. So one is a kind of like a sort of like a heart type piece. So these are investors who actually get what it is that we're doing. So not investors who are trying to sort of flip the investment and get out in a couple of years, but investors who really see that what we're trying to do is to transform the entire education system, and that it's the child that matters. So that's really key. And so that also means investors who are really in there for the long term, so 7, 8 plus years. So that's one piece of it. Another is that some of the investors, at least, are relatively deep pocketed, because as we do future rounds, what I would love to be able to do is to have the same investors then contribute larger sums. So it's really those 2 things.